Good afternoon. I'm happy to be here in two roles. I'm also the compare for the valedictory function. The chief guest for the function was to be our mission director and the joint secretary, Mr. Praveen Prakash himself. Unfortunately, because of some urgent work, he and his entire team had to postpone their arrival. He is coming back only tonight after the function is over. So I'll also be giving the closing valedictory address. But to begin with, I would like to thank all of you for participating very vigorously. I would like to thank my colleagues here. Professor Sivakumar tells me that the real marathon was run by Professor Bernard Menezes. So let's give him a big hand. And I would, of course, like to thank the workshop team. I hope you have all enjoyed your stay here. Before I request Professor Sivakumar and Professor Bernard to speak very briefly, because they have been speaking to you, as is customary, I would request some of you to come here and give very short comments on your experience, what you have learned, and also if something that you would like us to do better in subsequent workshops like that. So the floor is open. We would like to keep this to the minimal as far as timing is concerned, because I know all of you are eager to go back to your respective abodes, first to MTNL guest house and then back home or wherever. So we'll try to keep this short. But I would really like some feedback. There would be a feedback form that you would have all filled up, but some general comments that some of you would like to make, you're most welcome. The house is open. Please raise your hands. I will invite you in order. Usually the icebreaker is the most difficult person to find. Everybody wants to speak after someone has spoken. Is there a volunteer teacher amongst us who does not mind speaking first? Please. Please tell all of us your name and the college that you come from, and then please share your views.
Good evening, one and all. I am Kaushik Shekaran from IIT University. Actually, the feedback is I learned a lot of things here, as all of we did. The thing is, actually, a lot of times in internet, I searched about many video lectures. Even I found Professor G. Sivakumar's lecture on the first link. I clicked the link and I saw a lot of videos. And also Professor Bernard sir link. And also Bernard sir's book was very useful to me, and it is very useful for all of us. And we had a very nice interaction with all among the professors all over India. Actually, I met a professor from Kanyakumari and also a professor from Kashmir. It is a very nice interaction I got here. And most of the cryptographic concepts and the network security threats, personally I learned very well. Because this 1 week session, that is 5 day sessions, the thing is, it was so in-depth knowledge we got. And also the labs were very, very useful. Actually, we have learned a lot about the new tools and development areas and how to detect the threat and prevent everything is so nice. And also, I thank entire team members, like starting from the principal investigator, Dr. Phatak, and up to the last sessions, like the professors who are all teaching us all the time. And also the TAs, those people are so helpful in all the times, in lab arranging and tea arrangements, lunch arrangements, everything. So overall, I want to tell I'm very much lucky, and I'm very much thankful to all the professors and all the entire team of the cyber security workshop. Thank you.
Thanks. Somebody else now from that group?
I am SV Satyanarayan from Karnataka, JNN College of Engineering, Shimoga. I was really astonished to see the last 4 days deliberations presented by Dr. Bernard sir. The continuous, very conceptual, whatnot, in all respects, with great patience to solve all our questions, may be standard or silly, depending of, irrespective of the levels. That is a great part. Knowing something about cryptography, having done something in the area of elliptic curves, where I have pursued my research, I learned many other things than whatever whatever I was knowing, especially in the area of cyber security, in the sense network security or the attacks, penetrations, whatever. Yesterday's lab sessions were very wonderful. I was thinking whole day what really we do, and because as teachers we know when the labs are there, people really go away without doing anything. But TAs and the whole course team was very successful in making us to work till 6:30. Making us work till 6:30. It was a great job actually. Finally with Naman Jain, thanks to Naman Jain. Actually, finally I put a word to Naman Jain saying that something I learned about HTML tags and this, which I was really not knowing. He made a illiterate like me in HTML tag, knowing everything. And he has really it. A big applause to all MTech students, TAs. No weakness in this particular workshop, no weak points, everything was well organized. Starting from the seat arrangements what they have made. We also learned how to really make the people to sit. The way the Mukta madam was telling the first address when we came to the seat, how the attendance is strict and all. Really things worked a lot. And we understood also in our centers how really we have to make the people to sit. So also if there is a stuff, definitely everybody will be interested, and everybody, you need not force anybody if there is a content. So the seeing the strength, seeing the interest the people, our colleagues shown in the workshop, it is really true that workshop was contentful, course was really very good, a marathon session. Hats off to Bernard Shah. Thank you.
Someone from this enclave would like to share their thoughts? Please. There's no lady contributing to this portion. This is good.
Good afternoon, all of you. Myself, Anita Pujar from Walchand Institute of Technology, Solapur. We have been here for 5 days, all of us. Thanks a lot to Bernard sir for his wonderful interaction with the public and his delivery content. Wonderful teacher, wonderful orator. What else? No words to express. Thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you very much. I get a sense that all of you have derived a lot of benefit from this workshop. So thank you very much for that feedback. I suppose the other feedback form which is being formally collected, you would have given your detailed observations. May I request Professor Sivakumar to briefly say a few things, and then I'll request Bernard to give his concluding thought.
Thank you, Professor Phatak. I have only 2 points to convey. The first is about the thefts. So the person who lost his purse, you might have heard what Shakespeare said. Who steals my purse steals trash. Because cash is transferable. It was mine, it was his. It will be someone else's. So you should not worry. And anyway, you got it back. But those who are getting your laptops back, I don't want to scare you, but having gone through this course, I'm sure some flag should go up in your mind. So when you get it back, be worried about 2 things. What are the 2 things? Whether you had content in it which could compromise your own thing in future. So if you had stored bank passwords or Google, Gmail passwords, it's very unlikely that whoever took it attended Bernard's course. But very unlikely and impossible are not the same. So that is one caution. The second caution, again, if he had attended Bernard's course, he might have put something there which you don't want. So I don't want to scare you. It's very unlikely. So just for the warning, just for trying to relate it to this course. But now you can see it is more valuable to protect your laptop and encrypt the content. Do not keep vital information there, and so on and so forth. So that was the first point. And the second point is something where it is my duty to first repeat what everybody else said. Hats off to Professor Bernard. Okay, so when Professor Phatak called us to his room to discuss the possibility of doing this, I also gave very, what shall we say, unequivocal support. But that is only verbal. Unfortunately, due to reasons that I cannot really, I don't want to go into in detail, I had to finally let Bernard shoulder most of the responsibility. So it's my personal duty to thank him for taking care of most of the course. And next time, Bernard, I will do a better job. And not only Bernard, it is the students in the back. As we get older and as we be in the academic profession for a longer time, you will find that not only you but your colleagues will start saying that today's students are no good. They are not as bright as before. When we were students, we did study work very hard. Now they are very not interested, they are not concentrating. So I have also fallen into that trap many times in idle conversation with my colleagues. But this time, especially because of the constraints that I had to rely a lot on the students to get that lab prepared, the contents prepared. And this is something I always learn to my pleasant surprise, that you give students a job to do, they do it much better than you can predict. And I'm 100% sure the same is true in all your colleges. So this is the second message that I wanted to give to you. So you should trust the students. Thank you all students for doing such a wonderful job. So I am also sure that most of them sitting there were a year or two back in one of the colleges which is represented here. So they are not very different from the students you are teaching. So I hope you will also be able to use the students who are there in your institutes in a similar way when we continue this course in the next installment. Thank you so much. All the best.
On a lighter vein, since he spoke about the Steelers and hopefully that they had not attended Bernard's course, I remember an old story. I don't know whether it is a joke or whether a story then, but I heard it a long time ago about the smartness of the Mumbai pickpockets. So I'll just share that with you. This is about 40, 50 years ago. In those days, you used to get 1 rupee silver coins. So one rich man from Gujarat had heard about these smart thieves in Mumbai who can pickpocket without you knowing it. He wanted to test them. So he came with a kurta and dhoti and all, and in this kurta he had these 10 coins of 1 rupee, and he was constantly playing with them. He stood at one bus stop for some 10 minutes, then he stood at another bus stop for 10 minutes. He went to third bus stop at 10 minutes. Nothing happened. He kept doing this again and again. Then he came to the fourth bus stop still, and he was sharing his experience with his neighbor who was standing there in the queue, saying, "Kya baat hai? I had heard a lot of stories about Mumbai pickpockets, but for last half an hour I am standing there and nothing has happened." So he looked at him and he said, 3 people have already taken out all the coins. First of all, they are not 10, there are only 9, and all are counterfeit. So all 3 of them have put them back. So this is how smart the thieves can be. This may be a story, but we might as well be careful. The other story of how students can think of cheating the system, this is the actual thing that happened with me in my course. I was teaching a course on information systems for non-computer science students, mainly about databases and simple applications and so on. And at that time, I was working on the smart card project for Reserve Bank of India for doing some debit credit transactions, 98, 99. And the smart cards had just started appearing. So in a class, I gave the example and I said that 10, 15, 20 years later, the smart card will not be used only for debit credit transaction. Today, it has a 8-bit processor, 4 KB, 8 KB of memory, but at that time, it will be very powerful. So design an application which can meaningfully exploit a smart card of future, which is still cost 150 rupees or so. So there are teams of people who did projects on variety of things. Somebody had done a medical history project so that the entire medical history is stored on smart card. Today it is nothing new. These things are available now. Somebody had written a family history sort of database application. One group had designed an application which was titled Cock Sheet application. So I was quite surprised. Cock sheet, by the way, is a typical IIT Bombay term. Cock sheet means a small piece of paper on which students write answers to probable questions and carry them in the examinations with them. So that is called a cog sheet, copying sheet. And I was quite surprised at cog sheet application. So they had actually designed a database where they had chapters, and chapter-wise there were questions, and the answers were stored in the database. So I called the team during the Viva. I said, this is not an ethical application. And the student immediately produced the printed assignment sheet, which says, sir, that was not a condition of the assignment. So I had nothing to say. Then I said, but how will you use this application? Because this will require smart card readers and things like that. So please read assumption 4. In 2015, all exams will be online. So we're assuming. So I had to say something because I was still uncomfortable. I said, no, imagine that I'm still around and I still want to conduct a conventional exam, paper-based exam. So you go back, redesign this application such that you can use it even when I'm invigilating. So they took back, they didn't have to implement anything, but they came up with a very beautiful design. So they inserted a signal processing chip onto the smart card. They said there will be a pressure sensor and a transmitter which somebody has to keep in the left ear and a receiver, audio receiver on the right ear. Now, when I read the question paper, suppose I notice that this particular question is a chapter 3, question 2, I have to pull down my ear 3 times and pull it up 2 times. The pressure sensor will transmit that. The smart card will retrieve the data through an SQL query from the database. The signal processing chip will convert it into audio, will transmit it, which I will receive and which I will write. Although it was always, this was much before Munna Bhai MBBS and all appeared, okay? I had to give them an A grade, and I of course commented that this looks impossible. However, since then, every year I have warned all my colleagues, please look at students who are pulling their ear unnecessarily. You never know who will do what. So there are very funny parts of security and very funny parts of functionality. Sorry to digress from the main function. Let me request Bernard to make his closing comment.
So I've just got 3 little things to say. The first is acknowledgements. I don't know how many of you have heard of, we never really introduced Professor Phatak, Professor Shiva, but I would like to say a few things about them. Professor Phatak has been with this institute since, I believe he did his MTech over here, and has been one of the longest serving members of this place, contributed greatly. You must have heard of the School of Information Technology. The brain behind it was Professor Phatak, and many new courses came up during that time. I remember when I joined in 1999, I was very, very surprised to see the list of courses that were on offer. There were things that I'd never dreamed of before. There was e-commerce. This is 1999, mind you. E-commerce, embedded systems, data mining, mobile computing. None of those things I'd heard of before. You know, we always used to hear of the traditional things like operating systems, architecture, databases, networks, but all of a sudden you see all these new things. And that was a real revolution that really spurred us on to many, many different things. I, for one, got interested in e-business, and that led me to security. I never even in my wildest dreams thought I would be moving into such areas. I moved into forecasting, which is related to data mining and machine learning. So it was a real revolution, the School of Information Technology, which a few years later merged with the Department of Computer Science to make it a stronger place. Professor Phatak has also been the brain behind this initiative, which I think is absolutely necessary to train teachers. When I first heard of training 10,000 teachers, I thought it was a joke. But I'm sure you guys will help us make it a reality. This 2-phase thing in which we train about 200 is reasonably manageable. We bring 200, 250 people to this institute, train them at close quarters, and then hopefully, I really do hope that you will take this back and train many people in your college, at least 30, 40, 50 people, so that this whole effort becomes multiplicative. The other thing is about Professor Shiva. You may not be aware of it, but he was the one who handled the computer center. He's a person in verification, formal verification, a completely different area from networking and security and so on. And completely on his own, he handled the computing center. built it up from scratch, nurtured it for many, many years, was the head of computing center, and is really a kind of hands-on person with a variety of interests and with a variety of strengths. So I really, really appreciate him. He has been a great help to the institute and to the department. I'd like to thank Professor Phatak's staff. You might have noticed, those of you who've already had experience with them, that they are some of the most helpful, useful people anywhere that you will find anywhere in the world. I'm willing to vouch for it. I remember in 1999 when I came here and I applied for a faculty position, he had a staff member and I was preparing my slides. These are the good old days before the PowerPoint slides. So I had the slides and I wanted to redo some of it. And I was in Professor Phatak's office and he had to leave somewhere. And he said, "Don't worry, Vijay will help you." And believe it or not, Vijay sat with me till around 9 or 10, helping me get all the slides ready. The way he has trained the staff is absolutely incredible. You have also seen some evidence of it over here. They are absolutely the most helpful people in the world. No matter what time of the day you approach them, they are always willing to help. So a very big thank you to them, especially Madam Atre, Madam Gaitonde, etc. This would not at all be complete if I didn't thank our TAs. I've already put a list of the students that have passed through me. And as you can see, their contribution has been absolutely substantial, absolutely enormous. The TAs who helped greatly, Naman Jain, Nikhil Limje, Parmeshwar Reddy, Devendra Singh, Deepak Soyal, and many, many others have been absolutely great in all the demonstrations, the demos that they have shown you, and all the tools that they have encountered and that they have put into a video, etc., etc. I'm sure without their help, this would not at all have been successful. So a very, very big thank you to our TAs. This is a perfect living example of those who say that India's future lies in the hands of its youth. With such great youth, I don't see how we couldn't have a great future. So that much about the TAs. And the other thing is suggestions for improvement. So I know some of you have a little bit of trepidation. What will happen in the final workshop? Will we be able to install all these systems? Do we know these tools? We have never seen these tools before. I've never seen Nmap or Nessus or Metasploit. How will I teach them? What am I going to do? So we understand your concerns. We understand your fears. We are trying to do everything we can. To start with, all the demos have been put in video form, the slides, etc. I believe there's a CD that is being made on some of the installation, and it contains many of the tools that you can install in your system. You will probably need some hand-holding, and we are trying our best to see in what way we can make that happen. So if you can try and install all of this onto your systems, try things out. It's a great learning experience. Try it out with your students, for example, or with your colleagues and so on, so that you develop a certain level of competency, so that when the final workshop comes sometime in July, you are all ready to go. So please help us to help you in that respect. And finally, I'm really awed to see people from all across this great land. It really delights me. I've been having photo sessions with about 40, 50 people who come from every single part of Hindustan. I'm really, really impressed to see all this, to see this show of unity. It is really, really gratifying to me. And please keep it up. Let us stay united. If we are united, we are strong. With that, I conclude with a thank you. With that, I conclude with a great thank you to this wonderful audience. I was actually pleasantly surprised to see that many in this audience had PhDs. Some were doing PhDs. Some planned to do PhDs. The questions were just absolutely awesome. And, I really wish I could cover something more on lattice cryptography, etc. But unfortunately, because of time constraints, we couldn't move too much in that direction. But I really think this audience is great. I really think that the principal or whoever has chosen you has made a great decision. I hope you will take all this to your place and spread it around. Thank you once again for being excellent audience, and Jai Hind.
Before I give my concluding talk, I thought we should finish the certificate distribution and photographic session. I start my concluding address with two remarks. One was an observation of how our team managed well. We already complimented them, but somebody observed how Dr. Mukta Atre was telling people very strictly about where to sit, how to do things, etc., etc. For your benefit, I have no hesitation in accepting that even amongst our mates, she is recognized as a headmistress, a hard taskmaster headmistress. She often tells me sternly when I reached one venue late because it was not held here, I came here by mistake. She said, you should have noted down and read from the email where you have to come. You are 3 minutes late. So I took that advice very seriously. But we are very fortunate to have a team which gels well, extremely well. As you know, whenever you put together a team, even take these 250 people, or even take your students, or whatever, whenever you have a group, you would have people of all kinds. People have different approaches, different aptitudes, different attributes, different behavior. The ability to make them into a strong team which delivers is a very important aspect of any educational system. We are very happy that we have been able to do it. I am sure you are already doing this and you will take some things from here. Last time when I spoke to you during the inaugural session, I spoke mostly about the security-related things, indicating the need, a desperate need for the nation to train people. But today I would like to share some of my thoughts on the education, teaching and learning as it obtains, and as we are trying to change the paradigm, first using these 10,000 teachers training workshops, and then going ahead with the massive open online courses and so on. But let me argue about one particular aspect that you are all familiar with. I had mentioned this, I think, last time. We have 370 million Indians who are younger than 19 years old. Most of them are students, some are toddlers, some are in schools, some are in high schools, many of them are in colleges, some of them are in your colleges. How we handle them, how we benefit them, how we ignite their desire to learn something and to apply that learning is what education is all about. And while we work on that theme, it is important to understand that these workshops, while they focus on specific subjects, they also try to focus on exchanging the ethos of how an educational place should be. As I said, we would learn from you, your feedback, your anecdotes, and we would expect you to learn from us. I would suggest that a few things which you have seen here, completely outside the domain of computer security, are equally important, and that has been acknowledged here. The work of the team, for example, which organizes things, sitting arrangement, these are not small things. My advisor, a very senior person, was a deputy director of research in a lab. He personally decided on the sitting arrangement, decided on how the sitting arrangement could be most optimized for everything. That is the kind of time and effort that needs to be spent. So there is no activity which is small activity and therefore it can be left for itself to happen. Organization, sadly, management, when we speak of management, we often take it as a different field and therefore we have nothing to do with it. But that is not true. Proper management, efficient and effective management is important in every aspect, including in our teaching and learning. That is where we are trying to use technology to maximize the benefits for our students and our teachers. So I ask this question, how many of our colleges use a learning management system, for example, Moodle? We were not using Moodle till about, Shiva, what about 10 years ago? 6 years. And today, no teacher in IIT Bombay can run an effective course without having Moodle at the back. The conduct of a course has become extremely efficient and effective, and more important, easy for students to interact with. They can submit their assignments online. Now, why are we not using these features in our own education is an important. Typically, when we teach people, we divide the segment of students into 3 categories. One who are so smart that they can just come and give exams and they will score good marks because they already learned something on their own, they are well prepared. We generally leave them aside. One is a set of people who are extremely poorly prepared when they come. They are the ones who fail in tests and exams and they require our handholding. We do often concentrate on such people, helping them on evenings and weekends and so on. The bulk of the students, however, we let them flow with the class and assume that they will be doing well on their own. They mostly do that. However, as a teacher, it should be our job to ensure that everyone does to the best of one's abilities. Now that, unfortunately, when we classify people like this and treat the classes accordingly, is probably not achieved. Because for the bulk of students, we do not monitor how well they are doing and are they doing as well as they can do. Now this requires individual attention, which is not possible in a large class to pay. That is the truth. That is where the system of teaching assistants become extremely important. Now in this course, the TAs, you have seen how wonderful work they have done, but they were primarily addressing the requirements of conducting the labs, giving the demonstrations and so on, because it's a small 1-week course. But our TAs, when they conduct the labs and tutorials and other things during the regular semester, they provide far more help than just conducting the labs. Each TA has a set of students. I have been teaching CS 101, which is our first year programming course, for donkey's years. There are 500 to 600 students at a time. And it is impossible for a teacher to even know the names of all 600 people. And yet, I have never missed out on any student who is not performing up to that student's ability. Why? Because my TAs act as my feedback system. Right from week 1, my TAs will observe, suppose I am a TA and I am handling a batch of 15 students, then within 1 week of interaction, I would know which of these 15 students are very weak, which of these 15 students are very good, which of these 15 students are just doing what they ought to do but they can do better, and I can do that classification. This is one of the training program that we do for TAs. Well, I tell them that this is how they should sort of identify each individual. Apart from giving hand-holding support to the weaker students, I ask them to isolate the top performers and send them to me every Sunday or every Saturday. So I make an announcement. These students are actually more important for us, for our institute and for the society, because they are actually capable of doing something extraordinary. They have shown that they have performed better. Ordinarily, we leave them to themselves. Many of them will appear for GATE examination. Some of them, like our TAs, will come to IIT. But for every person who comes to IIT Bombay through GATE, we know that there are at least 10 people who are equally bright, who perhaps did not succeed in GATE. Some others who did not appear for GATE. Same thing is true about joint entrance exam. The question is, what do we do for such people? Do we do something special? And why that something special is important? So I'll share with you a couple of anecdotes. The first one is about Jamshedji Tata. You all heard of Jamshedji Tata? He was the one who actually gave a big donation to start Tata Institute of Science in Bangalore, which today is known as Indian Institute of Science. When he made that donation, land and money, the local Parsi Panchayat leaders went to meet him to protest. And he listened to them. They said, why are you helping some stupid research institution in Bangalore instead of helping the community? He smiled and he says, oh, but you don't know I am helping the community. So what do you mean you are helping the community? He says, please remember that only smart students who have done very well will be admitted to that college. They will do research, they will generate new knowledge, and they are the people who are capable of contributing to the wealth generation of the society in a non-linear fashion. They can do that much better than ordinary people. So when I help them, what they will generate will help you. This was the vision of a man hundreds of years ago. I will give you another instance which I personally came across. There's a small college in Odisha. I don't know, anybody from Behrampur here? Nobody. Some people from Odisha? You have heard of Behrampur. There is a small college called NIST. Yes. Yes, I had taken a 1-year sabbatical and gone around the country visiting small colleges. This was one of the colleges that I had visited. I used to interact with students, and as I think I mentioned, I found out in that interaction with students, typically final year students doing their computer science projects or IT projects. So there will be large number of students. That was also the time when there were bazaars opened to sell final year projects for MCA and BE projects. It just started. So that kind of nonsense was also happening. But in every interaction, I found 1 or 2 batches of students who had done their job extremely beautifully. They could not speak English as fluently as some of us do, but they had applied their mind, they had worked hard, they had come up with ingenious solutions, and they had worked. That is when I started my Eklavya project, saying that every nook and corner of the country has such 8 or 10 Eklavyas. What are they doing? But this is not alone. I also used to interact with the teachers in these colleges, used to ask them what are their problems. Of course, there were lots of problems. Of course, they had lots of issues. But in every college, I found 1 or 2 teachers who were going beyond the call of duty and were doing something special. This NIST experience which I want to relate is about something special. When I asked the teachers, what else do you do? I saw their labs, the conventional experiments. So one teacher sheepishly said, sir, I run an electronic design lab every Sunday. So I said, what do you mean Sunday? He says, no, I take up a problem and I call the students. We decide on some 3 or 4 alternative designs. Then the students build these designs over the semester. Every Sunday they come. So I said, very good, all the students come. He says, no sir, only 10 or 15 students come. Do they stay till the end of the semester? Yes sir. And they are very happy to build these designs. And I was so thrilled. I said, my dear friend, these 15 people are the ones who will make a difference to themselves and to the society. So you are doing a great job. You know what he said? Sir, you are the first one telling me this. My own colleagues laugh at me and tell me, पागल है, syllabus छोड़ के बाहर का पढ़ाता है. That means that some of us who would like to walk an extra mile to help some people, whether the toppers or the bottomers or whatever, and want to do something different, should also be ready to be criticized locally. But we must not lose heart. We must say it doesn't matter to us. My job is to make a difference to my students. And in whichever way I can do that, I will do it. I don't care what the world says. For the world, I will do my normal teaching so many courses, doing this, doing that, etc. But I will try to do something extra. And I'll tell you something. Whatever be the rules, regulations of the university and college, no university can stop you ever from doing something extra if even 2 students are interested in doing something extra. So you should be able to do that. I'll tell you about the aspirations. This is another incident that happened in my life. Actually, that is what led to my establishing of the Eklavya project. This was in year 1999, 2000, I think. I was invited to give a talk in a small town near Mumbai called Wada. Wada is a place which is actually a borderline of the city civilization like Mumbai, Thane and so on, and a large tribal belt. The Marathi Vigyan Parishad, which tries to popularize science in Marathi, had asked me whether I could speak to the 9th, 10th, 11th standard school children from the tribal area. And they said, we would like you to tell them about information technology in Marathi. Well, Sanganak Vidya Vigyan was computer science, Mahiti Tantradnyan was information technology. Although Marathi is my mother tongue, but I have studied in Madhya Pradesh, so I was more fluent in speaking Hindi rather than Marathi. But I said I will try. I prepared my speech. The speech went well. There were about 300, 400 students. They all came from extremely humble economic background. You could see that. But the kids were smart. And some very smart questions were asked to me at the end by these students. So I was very impressed. At the end of that lecture, when the breakout happened, I was gherraud by the boys and girls of this classroom. They wanted my autograph. For them, some professor from IIT was a big fellow. I felt like I am a movie star or something, so I sat down and started signing. And there was one boy who was standing in a corner. I asked him, "You want my signature?" He said, "No, sir, I have a question to ask you." So I said, "Fine, just wait." And while I was signing, the organizer suddenly came in. The local MP, who was the chief guest, was waiting for me for a cup of tea. He had to go back somewhere early, and the organizer told me, "You also said you have to go back early." So I said yes. So I wound up sort of and got up. And as I was starting to move, this boy held my hand, caught my hand. Then I looked back and he said, "Sir, you promised that you will answer my question." Then I told him, "Ke Baba, this MP is waiting. I'm sorry." Then he said, "Sir, me 10 kilometers chalat aloy. I have walked 10 kilometers to listen to your lecture." Then I stopped in my track. I said, "Why did you walk for 10 kilometers?" "Oh, I walk 6 kilometers every day to my school." So then I said, "But why do you walk? Don't you have buses, tum-tum, something like that?" I had, "Sir, but parvadat nahi. We have the facilities, but my family cannot afford." And then he proudly says, "Sir, I stand first in my class." When he said that, I told the organizers to apologize to the local MP. I said, "I'm not having a cup of tea." And I started conversing with that boy. So that boy had one question. What should I do to become an expert in information technology? मला माहिती तंत्रज्ञानातला तज्ञ व्हायचा आहे. What should I do? So what standard are you studying? 9th standard. So I told him about engineering. I said, "You do 9th, 10th, you do 11th, 12th. Then you should take admission to an engineering college." I told him about IIT joint entrance exam. Then you can become an engineer, study computer science, etc., etc. And then you work for a few years, you will become an expert. And then this was conversationary mode. Where will I get information, more information? Where will I get books? So I told him about the libraries which are available. I told him about trusts like Dolabji Trust or Tata Trust, where they actually support people with scholarships and so on. In the end, I asked him, "Why do you want to become an expert in information technology?" Assuming that he will tell about what was being read in the newspapers. High salaries were being paid to programmers who could write COBOL programs, Java programs, etc., etc. And his answer floored me completely. He said, "Sir, you have a student called Nandan Nilekani?" I said, "Yes." "He has set up a company like Infosys?" I said, "Yes." "I want to set up a company as big as Infosys in my life." Now, can you imagine this? This is an aspiration of a boy whose family cannot afford to pay for a bus travel to the school. Now, I met this person by accident, one person. Look at other 2 or 3 toppers from his own batch, his own division. In that school, there will be 10th standard, 11th standard, 9th standard. How many such schools are there in our villages and small towns? And how many such top performing students have aspirations? And what are we doing for them? I think that's a serious question that we all need to ask ourselves as teachers. They constitute the country. They constitute the bulk of performers for this country. And if we are not able to do something special for them, we have failed in our duty. Of course, as teachers, we must do everything in our capacity to teach well each and every student. But I think the better performing students stand a requirement which is special and unique and which all of us have sadly ignored. Assuming always, "Oh, they are so good, they will handle themselves." Of course they are good. Of course they will handle themselves. But are they performing to the best of their abilities? Because they are so good, they can exercise themselves only for 20% of their abilities and they will still do well. Is that adequate for us? Is that adequate for the nation, for the society? And I tell you what I have seen from the country and what you would have seen in your own colleges, so many students that you have come across. Such brilliant students come from every walk of life across the country. They come from every religion, every language, every locality, no matter where you are. My humble request to you is, if you're already doing something special, continue doing that. But if you're not, go back and find out what you can do, something different. You don't need to spend too much time of your lives. I know all of you must be working hard in your own, but just give 1 or 2 hours a week extra. I call that a great nation building contribution. 2 hours extra per week. Then whatever you are doing, 1 hour for the laggards to give them encouragement, to help them, but 1 hour for the top students. Figure out what challenge you will throw at them. In one college, I remember in Goa, it was not an engineering college, but the MCA program, one professor had set up a club for solving hard programming problems. That was the club. It used to meet every fortnight on a Sunday. And the only activity in that club is somebody will search the hard problems and those problems will be discussed and people will try to solve those problems. What an intellectually challenging assignment. You can think of absolutely anything under the sun. Coming to the cyber security area, please understand that we will be required to take some of these concepts to levels beyond our engineering college. I think we have already seen that you will have to train subsequently in the 10,000 teachers training program, not just teachers from engineering colleges, which is what we have been traditionally doing, but teachers from polytechnic, teachers from science colleges who are interested in doing something. There is a feeling, and I have come across this feeling at many places, that if I am an engineering college teacher, and if there are some subjects which are being taught in the science college, because the level at which those subjects are taught is significantly lower than what we teach in the engineering college, we tend to discard those things. Oh, ye kya bachcho ka khel hai, kind of. But do not forget two things. Even in those science colleges, commerce colleges, there are some smart students who can beat the shit out of your smart students as well. They just didn't get admission to your engineering college. They also deserve to be taught well. And do not laugh at those teachers. Those teachers are teaching smaller portions, elementary portions, merely because their university has so stipulated. How do you know which of those teachers are desirous, like you, to learn something more and to become better? So I'll request you that this is the first major departure we are making for this cybersecurity workshop, where we will not restrict teachers to only engineering college teachers. We will not restrict teachers only to polytechnic teachers. Although I believe that engineering college teachers and polytechnic teachers will form bulk of our teacher community. But if there are teachers who are in science colleges, commerce colleges, and you think they are capable of understanding and appreciating cybersecurity, they may not become experts like all other 8,000 teachers maybe, but they may also benefit to some extent. Because the requirement of the nation is to fire the salvos in all directions and try to see how many people can change, so that subsequently they go back and then train their students, train the information security officers, train whatever. And I would suggest that this is a general theme that I would request all of you to contemplate in your minds and carry back. We have lost too much in this country by building silos around ourselves. Engineering, commerce, science, arts, law, it's fine. Mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, computer science, fine. But these silos were made to handle the growing body of knowledge in every field, which could not be handled by combining everything together. But we forget that knowledge itself has no boundaries. And the people's capability to learn knowledge again has no boundaries. Anybody and everybody in any field with enough desire, with enough commitment, can learn whatever one needs to learn. Keep that in mind. I'm sorry I have taken longer than what should be due for a concluding address, but I specifically wanted to share my thoughts with you on the need for all of us to try and contribute maximally to the benefit of our students. Remember one thing, becoming a better teacher does not mean delivering my lectures well, does not mean setting up my experiments well. That is the minimum that we have to do. But what we have to maximize is the learning and the application of that learning by our students. Sadly, there is no measure that is available to us except the performance of students in examinations or the jobs that they get. That's the only measure we have. But intuitively, you can feel, if you adopt this approach, that teaching assistantship is not a normal practice in many colleges. I would strongly suggest that you go back and adopt it. Talk to your principal, talk to your director, fight with them if necessary, introduce a method of teaching. And teaching assistants need not be MTech or PhD students. When I taught my CS 101, when I teach my CS 101 every year, the institute has a provision to have second year, third year, fourth year students to become teaching assistants for first year courses. And let me tell you, some of them do as well, if not better, than my MTech and PhD teaching assistants. It is possible, except that you have to do two things. You have to select these teaching assistants ahead of the start of the course, and you have to spend 1 full week orienting them on how to conduct the TAship activity. This is hard work. There is no substitute for hard work. But if you do that, you will find that they are an enormous contribution to your teaching learning effort. And you will find that the students will feel far more comfortable raising questions with them, doubts with them, rather than with you. So with these words, I will stop here. The next workshop is 10,000 people. And as I said, when we conduct that workshop, Professor Bernard and Professor Sivakumar will be teaching from IIT Bombay. And I have noted that Professor Sivakumar has agreed to share a larger burden in the main workshop. I will keep count of the lectures that you give. Yes. But they will be here. If I am amongst the 50, 60 teachers who come to your remote center, for me, they are far away. For me, you are IIT Bombay. Your institute is IIT Bombay. And you are Bernard or you are Sivakumar. That's an enormous privilege, and that's also an enormous responsibility. Please appreciate, put yourself into my shoes. I come from a small college in Jharsuguda. For the first time, I am coming to a Kolkata college or something as a RC. But I am coming because IIT Bombay is conducting this course. I am coming because Bernard's great book is going to be used to teach me something. I see Bernard and Sivakumar every morning giving lectures from there. But in the afternoon, when I come to your lab, for me, you are Bernard. The facilities that your college provides me are the facilities given by IIT Bombay. This is exactly what I tell my TAs in CS 101. When you handle a lab, you are Deepak Phatak for the students. Now, if you don't live up to that, then the students will feel ditched by Phatak. And they cannot be ditched because students is our topmost priority. For you, the participating teachers who will come to your remote center will be your direct responsibility. I am sure that you will discharge that responsibility well. But just remember this, when you are conducting that workshop, from day one till the last day, you are Bernard and Shiva, and your college is IIT Bombay. Now live up to that expectation, and I will thank all of you. Thank you so much.